How do you go from this to this? Tottenham Hotspur, that's how. A real lack of leadership and mentality on show at the Amex yesterday, as Spurs blew a 2-0 lead to prevent us from making it 6 wins out of 6 before the international break. Welcome back to the Ben Bowman channel. I hope you're doing well. In this video, we're going to break down what we learned from Brighton 3, Tottenham Hotspur 2, and I honestly don't think there's too much to go into other than the team's mentality. Because yesterday, in that first half, we played Brighton off the park. What did we speak about before the game? Beating their press, making the most of their high line, getting in behind, creating chances that way. We absolutely bossed that first half. We're 2-0 up, deservedly, playing really well, and then threw it all away. And I don't think it's down to the system. I think it's down to the players yesterday. I really think it's down to the players, and we're going to get into that because it's inexcusable how Tottenham can find themselves in a situation where we dominate a first half and then come out with a cigar in our mouth in the second half like that and underestimate Brighton, because the warning signs were there in the first half that Brighton could hurt us, but Spurs was so dominant, so dominant in that first half, and we thoroughly deserved to be in a 2-0 lead. But we threw it all away, and I have to question the lack of leadership at the back, particularly Christian Romero. I have been the biggest banger of the drum of Christian Romero for a long time at Tottenham, a long time. But what he did yesterday and the part he played in that third goal, as well as Rodrigo Bentancur, was inexcusable. The captain of the club yesterday, by the way, and look, this is going to be a bit of a ranty one, and I'm not usually like this, but I'm still so wound up about what happened yesterday. And I think once the dust settles, we'll realise that we are still very much going in the right direction. And I don't think yesterday is a reflection on Ange Postecoglou or the system or the way that we are playing as a team whatsoever. But we've got to take more accountability defensively. Otherwise, teams like Brighton will punish you. They've got good players going forward. Kara Matoma, Danny Welbeck, experienced players who scored that third goal yesterday. They thoroughly deserve the win they got from that comeback yesterday. And Spurs got exactly everything they deserved. But it shouldn't have been like that. Spurs, yesterday, what have we done well all season? Win the ball high up the pitch with that intense press and get the ball to our four players quickly. James Maddison outside of the foot pass into the path of Solanke. And look, there are positives 100% to take from yesterday from certain individual players' performances. Dom Solanke being one of them. I thought Dom Solanke was excellent that first half. But he had 5 touches in the second half. And that's just not good enough. Not good enough service into our front man from our other 4 players or the defenders being able to play up the pitch and get the ball into dangerous situations. Brighton just suffocated us in that second half, but it was all a lot of our own undoing. But Dom Solanke, brilliant weight of pass. And if you look at Brennan Johnson here, again, if you're talking about positives from yesterday, the fact that he scored 6 in 6, unbelievable. And he's playing with so much confidence right now to the point where you know that as soon as Dom Solanke has got that ball there, he's off and he's in and he's going to score. I had no doubt in my mind as soon as Brennan Johnson made that run from right to left into the middle of the pitch, into the penalty area, that he was going to tuck that away. Left-footed as well. So much confidence and swagger about him, just like there was about Tottenham's whole first half yesterday. It was an excellent performance. And it's been the players that we've been talking about all season that have been playing well for Spurs, running the show again. Dejan Kulusevski again yesterday in that role, getting us from back to front in transition, linking up well with Brennan Johnson yesterday was superb, absolutely superb. Again, that structure, nothing wrong with that structure whatsoever. Dominic Solanke dropping deeper, allowing the runners to go beyond him in Werner, who actually had a decent game in that first half yesterday. I know, obviously, we're going to talk about his execution of certain moments in the final third, mainly in the first minute of the game, where you can see that Spurs were going to be able to spring that high line of Brighton and get in behind, which is something we talked about. We talked about the runners in behind with Werner and Johnson. First minute of the game, Dom Solanke drops that a little bit deeper, plays that ball through to Werner, and then Johnson is off into the box. Werner can't find him with that, well, the lack of quality and the weight of pass. But there were warning signs for Brighton from minute 1 that we were going to be able to hurt them, and I wasn't surprised that we did what we did to them. I said coming into this game that I could sense another heavy victory for Spurs, another big victory. And it would have been a statement victory yesterday. 6 wins out of 6, going to a place that we lost last year. That means that we've now lost to Newcastle away, Arsenal away, and Brighton away. We did that all last year. And what have we learned? We've learned that we've got better as a team. We've learned that these patterns of play are coming together. We learned that things are starting to click. But what we have learned is Spurs' mentality is incredibly fragile. Incredibly fragile. Ange said it after the Manchester City game, and look, I think he got caught up obviously in the emotion of the fans surrounding that Manchester City game, and look, it was a kind of once in a lifetime thing, obviously, but he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he learned that the foundations of the club are weak and all this kind of stuff, which sends alarm bells ringing straight away. But when you look at that yesterday, you can see it. You can see why. You can see why. Spurs were so good in that first half, so pretty in our play, so many patterns. Again, going back to this goal, his first goal. Players showing up that have been there all season. Again, that aggressiveness off the ball from Maddison. I talked on Saturday about how his out-of-possession game has come on leaps and bounds at Spurs in terms of his aggressiveness off the ball to win the ball back. Gets it out of his feet so quickly, and we're in. Second goal, again, Dominic Solanke dropping that little bit deeper, finding that space in behind. Timo Werner does well there, holds it back for Maddison. Again, into dangerous positions on the edge of the box. The keeper should save it, but it's 2-0. But Spurs were full value for that lead. But again, the foundation still of this team are weak. You can't have this much momentum in the game and throw it away. Like I said, look, the warning signs were there at certain moments in that first half, but largely we dominated it. Largely, it was all us. First half, 57% possession, 1 big chance, 6 total shots, and we were 257 passes, 10 tackles. You know, we were dominating that game, and Brighton might have had a couple of chances, but it's Brighton. They're a good side at the end of the day. They've beaten Manchester United at home. They've gone to the Emirates and got a point. They were never going to be out of it. But when you turn up in the second half like Spurs did, with a cigar basically in your mouth, and think that you're too good to come on the pitch and go and kill the game off, it's not good enough. And the thing is, we're going to talk about the 3 goals now. But the chances were, the warning signs were there. And look, I've been the biggest defender of Christian Romero for a long time. I think that he's so underrated as a defender. I think that on his day he's absolutely superb and definitely in the conversation for one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League when he's playing as well as we know that he can. But yesterday we did not see that. Matoma is always going to cause fullbacks problems. I don't have a problem with Pedro Porro yesterday whatsoever. Look, he got done in behind by Matoma for the first goal. But again, we're going to talk about in a sec, all 3 of those goals were preventable. Certainly the first and the third ones. But the warning signs were there with Christian Romero and this kind of lackadaisical attitude as the captain just does not track that run of Welbeck at all. Just lets him go. Look, it's a great cross from Matoma outside of the foot. He put a couple of them in yesterday, to be fair. And look, Matoma is someone that I would absolutely love at Spurs because could you imagine Matoma in these situations getting in behind if we just skip it on long forward? Look, Werner does well here. And look, I'm using an example for the goal, but we know that Timo Werner has let us down in certain situations over the last few games in terms of his lack of ruthlessness one-on-one, whether that's either taken on his man or certainly in front of goal. So, I don't really have a problem with Pedro Porro. I think he's actually probably the only defender that can come out of that game with his head held a little bit higher than the rest. Look, Mickey van der Ven, again, struggled yesterday, had a poor game. But Mickey van der Ven has probably had 2 bad games at Spurs. And again, he's young. He was coming up against a dynamic attack and he had an off day. And that can happen. I can forgive Van der Ven. You know, Van der Ven has been one of our most consistent, best performers this season and over the last 12 months since Postecoglou has been here, 100%, or longer than that, obviously. But Romero, I can't get over this. I just can't. This is the first goal. Look, like I said, Matoma gets does Porro in behind. But again, if I just move myself here or just hide myself for a sec, you can see when you've got Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Udogie in a line there, yes, Porro doesn't prevent the cross, but Matoma's got that pace in behind. He's a tricky customer. Spurs should not be conceding a goal from this position, especially when the cross isn't exactly on the money. And look, Van der Ven slides across to try and make the tackle and can't quite do it. I've not fully seen it back from a certain angle, but some people were saying it took a little bit of a nick off Van der Ven, and obviously it bobbles up to Udogie. And it's not, look, this isn't an easy one for Destiny Udogie to do, for him to deal with. Sort of bounces at him at an awkward height. But you've got to do better than that. You know, you've got to do better than that. I'm pointing the wrong way because my camera's on the other side of the screen. But you've got to do better than that. And then, again, Minter just rifles it home. And that's in the 47th minute. And you just felt like the tide was starting to turn. Again, if I move myself back over here, this is not a position... I'll put myself down here, actually. This is not a position that Spurs should be conceding a goal from. But this was a well-worked move from Brighton. Look, they beat our press. They did well. Played out from the back. Goes out to Estepinian. First time pass into Matoma, who shifts and gets this out of his feet really quickly into Ruta, who takes this really well. I've got to say, he takes it very, very well. And there isn't much to complain about from a Spurs point of view here. Can Van der Ven get across and make that challenge a little bit quicker? Maybe. Should Udogie and Van der Ven let them in between him there? Probably not. Out of all the goals, I have the least amount of problem with that one. With this one, this is just indefensible. Indefensible from 2 players, really, but the whole team, because let's sort of just play it through. Udogie gets beaten there by Ruta. Bentancur does the right thing and sniffs the danger and gets across to try and stop the cross, But does he try? Does he try and stop the cross? Absolutely not. I've got no idea what Bentancur is doing there. And then Romero, again, you'll kind of see it from a better angle in a sec when I show you. Just ball watching. How many players there just ball watching, allowing Welbeck that space? This is the better angle you can see it from here. Look, Werner, can he get a toe in there and help a doggy out? Maybe. But a doggy gets done. Rutter's a strong boy, right? He's not the easiest to deal with. So he does well, but a doggy's got to do that better. He had a mare of doggy yesterday. And I'm going to talk about Ange and the substitutions shortly in a sec, because I've got some different views on that. But Bentancur, I have no idea what he's doing. But look at the players that are all just ball watching. Romero, ball watching. Porro, ball watching. It's more on Romero, this, for me, because you're the centre-half. You're the captain. And you've got to take accountability. Again, Welbeck makes the movement. He anticipates the cross coming in. And Romero just doesn't move. It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough at all. And look, we know, I think, that we are going in the right direction. I think for the most part. I think most people who kind of watch this channel and, you know, feel like people have got their heads screwed on. And look, if you don't believe that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I genuinely believe that we are. But yesterday, to throw that away shows that we haven't learned anything from... I mean, it just perfectly buys into all of the kind of archetypal stereotypes. This is why people look through Tottenham through this lens, or look at Tottenham through this lens of being Spursy and being bottlers, because of that, because of this yesterday. It's just inexcusable. It's indefensible what we did and how we threw that game away and how we capitulated. It's embarrassing, honestly. And look, I'm not usually the sort of person to come on here and rant and just kind of give you a load of nonsense. I try and go in depth in terms of some of the tactical aspects of why things might have gone right or why things might have gone wrong. But we all watched that game yesterday. I don't need to do that today. I don't need to get a load of screenshots and talk about our patterns of play. We all knew that Kulusevski had an excellent first half. Dominic Solanke had an excellent first half. That relationship between Kulusevski, Solanke and Johnson is really blossoming. Maddison, again, being aggressive out of possession. Our ability to move from back to front, our pressing, everything. We all watched the game. I don't need to show you, because in that aspect, we haven't learned anything from that. We know that when we're playing that well and we're ticking like that, we're a fantastic side, and we know that we're on this upward trajectory. But when you look at this, that's just not good enough. And that just shows that we haven't really learned anything from maybe last season, or, you know, about the mentality and the fragility of the mentality of this club. And look, I said it before, I'm the biggest defender of Christian Romero, but as the captain, there was no leadership, there was no one organising, there was no one shouting yesterday, other than Vicario, who couldn't have done anything about the 3 goals, watching this mess just unfold all in front of him. And look, like I said, Van de Ven had a bad game, but Van de Ven, again, it's probably Brighton and Newcastle that you can count him having a bad game. 2 bad games really for Spurs. And Brighton are a good side. And I wouldn't have minded it if Brighton were carving us apart and, you know, they just were too much for us. But like I said, you go back to all of these 3 goals, that's preventable. That's preventable. And that certainly is preventable. This one is just embarrassing. That is just not good enough at all from Spurs. Look, for me, like I said, I think this defeat, for me, lies on the players. Ange Postecoglou, after the game, got asked about the substitutes. She said, were you tempted to make your subs earlier as the game was turning? And the game was turning. Look, again, you kind of go back and look at this momentum bar. You can see the game turn in the second half. The game turned. Were you tempted to make your subs earlier as the game was turning? Yeah, I could have, but all of these things are totally irrelevant to me. Substitutions and all those kind of things. If you're not competitive, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to get rewards. You don't deserve to win. We didn't deserve on our second half performance, irrespective of subs or anything else, to get something out of the game. But I think if you do get something out of the game, you're falsely rewarded, and I don't want to get falsely rewarded. Now, I don't know about you. In that game yesterday, I would have taken being falsely rewarded. I would have taken Spurs turning that round and winning it 4-3 when we didn't deserve to, or hanging on and winning 2-1 if they were peppering us. I would have taken that. And on face value, these quotes appear quite strange, right? But I think what he's trying to do, because like I said, I don't think that was on Ange yesterday. I don't think you can look at the way that we played in that first half and the patterns of play that we were able to put together and the defensive structure that we had put in place to defend those situations. You can't tell me that this is a systematic problem or a problem with the manager. It's a problem with the players, not defending well, not taking enough accountability. I said this after the Arsenal game. The lack of leadership in this team is frightening. And look, we are, you know, average age of this side, right? Scroll down here. We're a young team. Younger than Brighton, right? And leadership and that maturity comes with time. Of course it does, 100%. But Christian Romero is a player that is a World Cup winner. He's won 2 Copa Americas. And with the passion that he shows on the pitch, in terms of defending certain situations and whether he scores a goal or whatever it is, and the way he G's up his teammates sometimes when it's going well, I just can't believe what I saw from him yesterday. I really can't. And look, I don't want to keep going on about him, but what I think I'm trying to say with this is that I think he's just trying to deflect away from the fact that he didn't make substitutions. He should have made changes earlier, in my opinion. I also don't really understand the substitutions that he necessarily made. I think Jed Spence probably should have come on for Destiny and Doggy. He was clearly having a nightmare and wasn't offering us too much going forward. But what I think he's doing here is just trying to make the players take responsibility for that, because Ange could have taken making substitutions, and it's up to him to change the game as the manager, 100%. But I think he's trying to say that regardless of what I could have done, the attitude and the mentality of the players was not right. Not right at all. And I think that was the biggest problem yesterday. Like I said, strolled out in that game with a cigar in our mouths, and it wasn't good enough. And we do that again, and we're not going to go anywhere. 2 weeks now to fester on this, to sit on this, an international break, which is not ideal. I feel like Spurs always do this to us just before an international break, where we've got to sit and really think about this for a couple of weeks. But Christian Romero and the defence, yes, they've got some real thinking to do. And I did the fighting cock this morning, and Nick was talking about the fact that almost in a funny way, the international break is a good time to sort of reset and really dive into this and sort of get the players understanding why there is a real mentality problem and a real lack of leadership and a real lack of accountability. But all of these defenders, Destiny Doggy, Guillermo Vicario, Pedro Porro, Christian Romero, Mickey van der Ven, all going away on international duty. They are all international players, but they didn't play like it yesterday. And like I said, I can excuse Van der Ven 100% because I think you can count on 2 fingers probably bad games he's had for Spurs. That doesn't mean that he wasn't good enough yesterday. But Christian Romero, this has happened too many times this season where he's been ball watching. Leicester goal, ball watching. Arsenal goal, not strong enough on Gabriel. It's just that we're seeing a shadow of a player. Not on the ball. On the ball in terms of his progressive passing and his dribbling, fantastic in terms of getting us out from the back. One-on-one defending has been awful. Defending certain situations has been awful. It's not good enough. But the international break is a good time to hopefully try and iron out some of these mistakes. But like I said, the ironic thing is that these players are international players and they'll be away. It's just not good enough. But look, bit of a ranty one from me. I'm annoyed, and hopefully this is me getting off my chest. But yeah, poor from Spurs. Brilliant in the first half, awful in the second half. I don't think you'll find a bigger disparity in performances in 2 halves of football from a team in a long, long time. Ange said it was the worst defeat that he's had at Spurs yesterday, and I think he's right. And I don't think he can take much of the blame or much of the responsibility for that. The responsibility lies on the players, in my opinion. But you guys might not agree with me, and feel free to let me know in the comments and we can have a debate about it. International break now. Hope you have a good 2 weeks rest before Spurs come back and ruin it all again. Hopefully we see a turnaround after the international break and we can kind of pick that momentum back up. It's a shame, really, it is an international break and we don't have like a Europa League game or something to just go and get that win and put it right and get back to winning ways. It's an annoying one to fester on for 2 weeks. But yeah, have a good one. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for 6,000 subscribers, and up the Spurs.